And we're in.
Okay. So we move on with the agenda. On procède avec l'agenda, Committee of the Whole Committee. The first committee is General Government, Gouvernement Général, and I'll pass it on to the chair, Conseillère Lise.
Oui, merci beaucoup, Mme la mairesse. Deux items ce soir. La première, c'est vaccine policy, clarification as running for council seat, and it's Councillor Fisher that asked the thing to be discussed, and I'll leave it to Councillor Fisher to explain his request to discuss the matter. Mr. Fisher?
So thank you, through you. There was some things written in articles in newspapers or letters, and I do find it problematic that people are going to the place where, if you're not vaccinated, you can't run for council. And I don't believe the municipal act supports that. I don't believe that we've clarified that as well as possibly we should. And so basically, I think it's fairly straightforward what I've written, but I would like to put it to our CEO to perhaps explain it further. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair.
Yes, I was waiting. He passed yeah, it's okay, Monsieur Barbeau.
Thank you, and good evening. Yes, I understand that there might have been some confusion. So to explain the policy that council approved, we include council members as members that should be following the policy that council approved with respect to vaccination, but certainly there is some, or if there is some confusion, to clarify legally, there is absolutely no restraint or restriction on members of the public for submitting their candidacy to run for municipal office. The vaccine policy is not a legislative requirement or barrier to being a qualified candidate. I can quote them back in my clerk days, but you have to be a Canadian citizen, a resident or a tenant or a partner or same-sex partner of, and not guilty of an election fraud offense. So those are the only reasons that you wouldn't be able to apply. So certainly everybody is able to apply. And then the application of the policy for existing councillors, obviously there's a lot of discussion on the most extreme of fear with respect to how these policies are being interpreted and handled. And certainly without being too facetious, there isn't any way for a staff member to terminate a councillor for not being vaccinated. So that is a moot point. The only way a councillor can lose his or her seat is by being absent from that seat for over 90 days without the consent of council. So parts of the discipline part, if you will call it, I don't like to use that word, does not apply to council, present or future councillors applying. But we would obviously hope that councillors who pass policies would want to adhere to the policies and protect the health and safety of one another and to those that they have to interact with here at the corporation. So that was the intent of including councillors in that policy. Sorry for that. I have a computer that I don't understand. The other thing I would talk about is some of the content, and certainly we intend to obviously apply the policy in a consistent and fair manner, given the circumstances of certain individuals who are either non-vaxxed or what have you. But it becomes an HR issue. And certainly we take all instances of non-compliance with any policy in context, and certainly we'll be applying the policy fairly and consistently. There is some discussion, and if some of you are confused as to where I'm going, there is some valid discussion from a scientific level, that needs to be potentially addressed down the line. But with respect to boosters, are they considered fully vaxxed or not? Our policy now includes boosters. That would not come into play for at least another month anyway. So the application of that part of the policy is not applicable right now. We would certainly be looking at individual circumstances and individual cases at that point. I guess what I want to say, though, is that the intent of the policy, we hear a lot of things, and there's a bunch of people on roads and blocking, blocking traffic, in our capital and so on. We as a government follow the lead of government agencies. I personally and our staff working with council don't have the luxury of trying to second guess or become a better scientist than the scientists that we have employed with are in the public sector through our health units and through Public Health Ontario and through the Government of Ontario, through the Government of Canada and World Health Organization. And so it isn't a municipal staff or council's opinion at this point to basically start, second guessing some of those discussions. We're following public policy advice and public health advice, and that's how this policy was implemented. And so I just want to allay a little bit of fear here that the issue of you're all going to get fired is a may, it's not a shall, and it obviously becomes a human resources issue. And we have to take all circumstances, whatever they may be, into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, I'll go around. Conseiller Duhaime?
Yeah, I agree with Jay somewhat here. I do agree with what's being said here. I think we, without a doubt, we can't prevent anybody for running for office. And I'm sure now with the mechanisms we have in place now, we certainly can accommodate them because we do it now to accommodate ourselves. So I don't see any problems with someone who is willing to run that is not vaccine or doesn't have his vaccinate or is not vaccinated. And I think we could work to accommodate this person, no problem at all, especially with the mechanism we have right here before us. So I thank you, Madame Presidente.
Okay, Conseiller Fisher, you want to add something?
No, thank you. No further questions.
Okay, Conseiller Larabie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I have a few questions. From what I'm hearing now, that would mean since we're working under the provincial government and guidelines on the election policies, we have this virus that's all new. It's been since 2019, so it would I presume it would have to come from the province to put a guideline saying that you have to be vaccinated. Us, we can't do that. So that's the way I understand this. And the other one would be if a person has the 2 vaccines but do not have the boosters on a volunteer basis, let's say the fire department or whatever, would they our policy states that they have to be. Now, is there anything that we could do to accommodate them, like we've done with the French language, saying that you need to have somebody, if they're working directly with the public, they have to be bilingual, but if they're not directly working with the public, could they still work with us in the background as far as, if it's the fire department holding the hose in the back or running the truck, that would be one of my questions. The other one is if council, if one employee did take the 2 vaccine and really got sick on these 2 vaccines and have worn out their sick days because of because of the vaccine. Now, if we force them to go for their boosters and they do get sick, do they get compensation from the municipality since they worn out their sick days? That would be my question.
Okay, I guess I'll let Monsieur Barbeau answer that.
Sure. So again, it's a municipal policy that that has some shalls and some mays. We have included boosters. The theory behind a booster is if you've taken your first and your second dose, it's because you probably wanted to be protected given what folks were saying in terms of not getting sick or passing it on or not getting as sick or blah, 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 right? But the whole concept scientifically is that your first and your second boosters were probably over 8 months ago. And so the government introduced, or your first and second shots, the government introduced a booster. And like anything, you get a booster shot to basically enhance your immune or to kickstart your immune response to these shots. And so the idea is if you're in it and things are evolving that we all don't like, you should continue, and the majority of folks are continuing with their boosters. Now, as with any policy or variation of a policy, each argument that is made becomes somewhat individual to a certain degree. We have certain template reasons why we would respond a certain way, but your hypothetical question, Councillor Larrabee, we would have to have a look at it. Certainly, if we can make arrangements where, or if that individual's position or job does not involve necessarily a lot of interaction with others, then there might be some things that we can do. But certainly the intent of this policy is, again, to protect the health and safety of our workers, and to protect council, to protect the residents that they serve. And so our intent at this point is that we would be hopeful that people get their boosters. Now, with respect to any undue hardship that it may cause somebody, I'm not going to get into a debate on somebody getting really sick from the booster shot. I know there's a reaction from some, and it is unpleasant. Does that make you have to stay home or whatever? We'll take all of those issues into consideration at that time. But right now, the intent is that we would like to have our staff in the public sector here that have to offer services vaccinated and also with a booster. With respect to a comment that you made, Councillor Larrabee, just as a general policy discussion, the municipality can form its own policies. Now, whether they hold up, whether they go overboard or underboard, if that's a word, it is entirely, is a different discussion. But a a standard could be, say 70% of what we really want, but we would like it to be at 90%. So we pass a policy enhancing that. And so certainly the government is declared fully vaccinated as having your first and second shot, and have not yet discussed or declared a booster as being included in the fully vaccination. That's all well and good. It's a little bit like Employment Standards Act. There's minimum standards, and then there's other policies that we can pass to enhance the Minimum Standards Act, Minimum Maintenance Standards, or Minimum Standards Act in employment. A government can pass those policies. We research those policies to make sure that they're not too far out there and in line with other folks' policies, and that's what we have done. So at this point, we are very hopeful that the staff that we have are going to be fully compliant with our policy. It's too soon to tell. As I indicated last week or 2 weeks ago, or maybe Elisa has, or Ms. Craddock has, apologize, Ms. Craddock. We have very few individuals that are employed with us that are not fully vaccinated. And we're at the point of addressing those situations right now, and that's the first stage. Our policy says February 2nd, I believe, for a first dose. And so we're at that stage now, and then we'll be crossing those other bridges as we, as we come. So we have a little bit of time to address any lacks. I would also indicate that, we manage the public health component following our public health, but I'm also mindful, as our senior staff are, as our counselor is, with continued operations of our municipality, and we have to marry those two issues in implementing the, how we handle going forward, the booster or not booster. But right now we have some time. There are some clinics. We recommend people, and people have availed themselves last week to our clinic. And so we're very hopeful that they continue to do so. So my message to our staff is, if you haven't gotten your booster, please do so. And thank you for doing so. And if there's any legitimate reason why you cannot, then address it with your employer, and we'll have a look at that.
If I may, Madam Chair, and my first comment or my first question was as far as a counselor running unvaccinated, that would be a provincial legislator.
We don't have the authority. Yes, there's no authority in the municipality to block that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I could give you permission to talk, but you did, so that's okay. I'm going to go to Conseiller Mallette.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, thank you, CEO, to clarify. I'll give you an example. Like even the Château in the hospital, they still have COVID in there, but they're all boosted, the 2 vaccine plus the boost, and they still get it, but they're not dying, and that's a big issue. And I think we should follow the same path as what's recommended by your province and the health unit. Thank you.
Merci, Monsieur Mallette. Now, Monsieur Revido, Conseiller Revido.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no issues, and I agree with our direction. I believe in vaccination. I believe in the whole 2 plus the booster. I think that everybody should be encouraged to follow suit, not only just our employees, but the population at large. It's the only way we're going to beat this. And I'm thanking those that have made the decision to do it. And hopefully we can move forward. Thank you.
You wouldn't sit too well in Ottawa right now, eh? Conseiller Revido. Thank you. Monsieur Sénécal, Monsieur Denis Sénécal, conseiller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we rehashed this enough. I have no comments at this time. Thank you.
Okay, Madame la Mairesse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was listening to the entire discussion, and the main purpose why it was brought back to the table was for clarification pertaining to whether or not someone can run for office, even though this vaccination policy has been adopted by council. So my understanding is yes. There is a section in the policy that makes reference to premises of the municipality. So if someone doesn't comply to this policy, it means that as a volunteer or an election candidate or an elected official, they would be prohibited from performing any functions or duties on municipal premises. Would that be correct?
As a generality, it would be correct, but again, I don't, I don't want to have these wide sweeping statements. It would need to be specifics oriented, and we'd have to have a look at, what that would mean and have a specific instance or outcome. If somebody is fully masked and is in an open hallway, 6 feet apart, and there's safe controls to do so, then, we may, we'd have a look at that. Certainly, though, a counselor, without being too facetious here, a counselor isn't bound by the same rules as a staff member with respect to the policy. If a counselor is in total violation of a policy, then it would go to the integrity commissioner, I suppose, depending on the validity or effectiveness of that. But you can't, you're not going to have somebody giving a counselor or a member of staff who's trying to keep the policy together, telling a counselor that you're going home for 2 weeks without pay. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. And so the intent of including the counselors with respect to that is basically on the spirit of we're all in this together and we're all participating. But certainly there's certain aspects of the enforceability of this is certainly different for counselors than it is for staff.
If I may, Madam Chair, I do get that part because volunteers and council are not employees, so we cannot be disciplined the same fashion as what HR would be. That's when there's a distinction between that. But I was under the impression that we adopted this policy and that the policy was applicable to all volunteers, elected official, and employees. And once that policy is enacted, that even council members, if we were to resume business in person, conducting business in council chambers on municipal premises, according to this policy, we need to comply with the policy having the vaccination and the boosters. That's what the policy states.
Right. How we handle the implementation of it, or a little bit even with staff, is if you have an employee, as an example, who is not doesn't have a booster but doesn't have a need to be in an office or to to be with coworkers or so on and so forth, we may not be imposing the same type of restrictions as other counselors or policies. So the policy in general references everybody, that yes, everybody we would like to have vaccinated and boosted. I have indicated in my previous statements that the booster issue might become a little bit more problematic down the line, and we're working that out. With the vaccination issue, like every other organization, prior to us, they've had the advantage of getting together at council prior to they have passed policies that are similar to these and have taken measures to address certain members of staff that refuse to vaccinate. Again, that's a general statement. It would really depend from an HR perspective on specific instances. So I don't know if I'm answering you, but if a counselor comes into this building and is not fully vaccinated, depending on what the rules of the day are with the province, there may be measures put upon them, but like any other member of society, really. So.
Okay. Well, Madam Chair, I'm going to say I'm even more confused because if it's a wish versus a requirement, there's a distinction between both. And the same rule, contractors that want to conduct business on municipal premises, they're identified that they need to be vaccinated, they need the booster. So my understanding, council members are supposed to adhere to this policy. Mm-hmm. And if we don't need to adhere to the policy, well, then we should be excluded from the policy. Because I think the intent initially when it was presented to us is to make sure that we protect the employees, we protect the corporation, and based on the information of each member, it's the direction that they wanted to see adopted as well, as role model in the community. But if there's going to be a nuance, maybe yes, maybe no, remove it.
There isn't a nuance. You should be vaccinated and you should be boosted.
Okay, well, it means then if we're not, then to accommodate those individuals, either volunteers or either elected officials or candidate for elections, it has to be clearly known that there's going to be accommodation made to these individuals.
Right, and that's what I'm doing.
Okay, no, I just wanted to, because, what I've been hearing is from, HR perspective, many of our employees did comply with the vaccination with the first and second dose. Some are hesitant for the booster for whatever reason. But what I hear tonight is that right now the booster is not the main, the logistics of adopting or implementing the booster requirement will be ironed out in due course when the time comes to look at that. That's what I heard. Would that be correct?
Well, you can imply that, and you would be right in your, or you wouldn't be inaccurate in your interpretation. What I'm saying is that right now, February 2nd, those who do not have their first dose, which should have been about a year ago by now, typically you have an indication on whether they're pro-vaccine or anti-vaccine. There have been some in the last month and a half that have indicated, they didn't want to get a vaccine, but that they would get a vaccine if it was imposed upon them. And that has happened, which has reduced the number to, like I said, to I think 3 total. And so right now, February 2nd is first dose. March 2nd is second dose and booster. Then there's the second dose. So if you've decided to get your first dose by today or tomorrow, and you're waiting for your second dose, then you've got until March 2nd. Now, if you can't get it by March 2nd due to scheduling issues, you would contact your employer. And, that's why it becomes an HR issue on a case-by-case basis. But obviously, you need those first and second. And then when is the ability to get your booster? There's some discussion right now that the province is saying from the time it's announced or the time that you're able to have it, it's 1 month from the time. Now, there's been some stories of people who are already sick and their doctors are saying, well, you should only have to wait 3 months. But public policy right now through the provincial officer of health, I'm sorry if I get his title wrong, is saying 1 month. And so right now, the policy is still valid, and we are expecting all of our staff, volunteers, contractors, to basically fully comply with this policy. If we run into a real issue with the policy, I'm not foreseeing it, but if we run into a real issue with the policy, we may make some operational issues as long as we're not in violation of the policy that council wished, or we'll come back to council at that time. But the idea that council shouldn't be part of this policy, can or cannot, all it is a gesture of the fact that you're willing to join your staff in complying with the public health measures that are being directed and recommended by other government agencies that are more in the know than we are. So right now, what I'm saying is the policy stands, and we are implementing the policy as it is. And the issue with boosters, we'll have that conversation down the line, but I urge all of the staff members that are having problems or have some concerns to share with their supervisors, and their supervisors share with us, and we'll have discussions on a case-by-case basis to either rectify Councillor Larrabee's needs with respect to what to do if they have no holidays or sick days or so on and so forth. But it becomes a human resources operational issue at that point.
Okay, so if council joined the policy as a courtesy.
Point of order.
No, I just want
Point
to.
of order, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Madam Mayor, what is your point of order, Councillor Rowley? In which section are you basing that? And I'm not going to play around. So what is it?
Good. I'm happy to hear you won't play around. I spoke twice and you said that I spoke and I should have asked permission. It's the fourth time the mayor asked and
No,
you
no,
never
she
pointed
asked
that
me.
out. You never pointed it out. So, hey, no, let's play on the same rules here.
No, she asked 3 times. The last time she didn't ask because she was the same question. And if you know what, it was a joke when I said that to you. Since you're taking it so seriously, I won't make a joke with you anymore. But
Thank
right
you.
now, Madam Mayor, continue of asking the question because it have to do with that. And the next question, make sure to ask me.
Okay, well, through you, Madam Chair, if council opted to join, to be part of this policy as an opt-out, not because it's being enforced in any way, shape, or form, was that the intent why council agreed to have council added to the policy? Because my question to follow with that is, will council be asked to provide proof of vaccination to comply with this policy? If we're not being asked any proof, and if it's just, to show that leadership, I don't see why we're added to the policy if it's not a requirement on behalf of elected official. And that's where the confusion is, according to what Councillor Chris DePurposey put it for discussion this evening for clarity. So if it's no special requirement required by council, it means there's no special requirement for candidates running for office. And if there's no enforcement for council to be vaccinated, well, then it should be a council decision to say, do we stay in the policy or do we remove ourselves from the policy?
Do you want me to answer, or there's a lot of comments? Do you want me to answer, Councillor, Madam Chair?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
you can.
Well, so it's a council policy. Council adopted it, I believe, raise of hands, and that was included in that. So 2 weeks later, you have that question. That's fine. So the intent, if you read the preamble of the policy, is from an occupational health and safety to protect our co-workers. And so if there's any idea that council, who are they're quasi-paid, but they are of a different nature, obviously, than staff member, intend to come into the building, interact, walk by, bump into different folks, as a result of, or as a fact of being merely a counselor and having to do business with other senior staff, as an example. I mean, right now we're fairly sheltered with our mostly with our distancing measures. But if that was the case, then my understanding is, as it is right now, is yes, we would require you to show proof of vaccination, and that would be part of the policy that we would be asking. Council doesn't do that, then again, it's not that you're not to comply with the policy. We have a bunch of policies that some comply with or don't comply with, depending on this on the subject matter. If it's egregious enough, it goes to the integrity commissioner. No comment on the effectiveness of that, but the mechanism for compliance for a counselor, integrity commissioners rule on code of conduct, but also compliance with your policies and your bylaws. And so if Councillor Millette decided to thumb his nose at it, then Councillor Rovita can file an integrity commissioner complaint and get a response or a ruling from the integrity commissioner, anywhere from 2 to 8 months later. So so that's it. So you're part of the policy now. Now, what you're suggesting if your preference is, because it's a council policy, if your preference is to not be included in this policy, then we could basically put forth an amendment next week or in 2 weeks' time, amending the policy to exclude council altogether, and that's council's wish.
If I may, Madam Chair, I don't have to wish
Last
to be.
question, Madam
It's
Mayor.
a comment, not a question.
Well, last comment. Thank you.
Okay, I asked the question because it seems it appears that the message I'm getting is sort of different than what we had adopted 2 weeks ago. I don't ask to be excluded from the policy, but when a policy is being adopted, there's the implementation portion. So if council is included in the policy and we are to be vaccinated, well, then there should be the process of the administration of this policy. And I agree, like our CEO said, if one refuses, there's a mechanism. But at the end of the day, right now, we can go on the assumption that all members of council have been vaccinated, and we don't even know because we weren't asked to submit any proof whatsoever. And if we're looking to comply with the policy, well, then there has to be the implementation of the policy. Otherwise, the policy doesn't have any merit.
So to solve that, if I might end, because I mean, we're spending way too much at this point of time. We're not going to get to the second one before so I can understand. And the best way to deal with that, to show a proof that we're part of that policy. And I know that I think I shouldn't say all of you, but I know that most of us have their booster right now, up to our booster. We should just go and send a proof of that we have our booster, because I don't go to this town often. And when I go, I stay behind the glass, but I do go and get my package. So that would solve that problem. My question, though, I do have a question because I did not ask it, is that we're talking about volunteer, but if we are accommodating a politician to still, he won't be able to sit down probably in the premises, but he can do by Zoom. So why not we do the same thing with volunteer? Because if we're talking that we're trying to encourage people to run for council, and that's one block that they don't have to think about it right now, because we clarified that tonight that we cannot impose that on them. But the volunteers, the same thing. We don't have, it's not like we've got a volunteer knocking on the door every day and having a waiting list for all departments. So I think if a volunteer wants to be volunteer, it can do it on Zoom. We're doing it. It's going to become a tool that is very well used. And so it will encourage people to submit their name. If they're not vaccinated, well, you're going to have to attend by Zoom. And I think it should be offered to anybody that's on any committee, because right now, like, we don't go by Zoom at Chateau, for example, but it's not because we cannot do it. It's because we all agreed to stick with the mechanism we have in place, which is by phone. But I mean, if I would have another committee and I would ask to be going on Zoom, because even if I have my booster, I'm not going to put myself out there to catch anything as far as public. So, Jay, do you have anything to say about volunteer? Because it stated the promise that they cannot be on that.
Yeah. So I love volunteers. If you ask me for someone to stay, yeah. And so right now, the discussion is somewhat academic, and the classification of volunteers, is narrow in scope with respect to people sitting on committees and so on and so forth. It would be our understanding right now that wouldn't really be that applicable in the sense that those volunteers are distancing and do not need to interact with one another or staff. And so that, this is a staff kind of and health and safety issue. So there wouldn't be an issue there. Down the line, let's hope it doesn't get there where we're talking about reopening the whole world. This policy probably will become irrelevant, and we'll probably have to cancel the policy in a hurry so that we don't evolve. But right now in this world, we're asking folks to be fully vaccinated. Anybody that has interaction with us to be fully vaccinated, and that's just and boosted. And so yeah, certainly, Chateau is an example. You're fine. You're not even going there. You're interacting. There's no issue. I don't know that our policy. I've read it a few times, but I don't know that our policy states a lot of prescriptive measures. It does say that you should be this by this or this, or we may have to take measures. But we always put the worst case scenario in those measures, but it doesn't necessarily mean that will be the case. If certain staff or what have you do not have any interaction with folks, then obviously we would be addressing them in a different, in a different manner than staff that absolutely have to interact with other humans. And so, the volunteer issue, I agree with you, Councillor Senecal. We would like all of the people in the family of West Nipissing to abide by this policy. Not all people are going to be treated necessarily in the same way. We will be treating different folks or different categories and different subject matters according to the protection, of our staff and how we can handle and what kind of accommodations we can move. While being consistent, though, because what we don't want to do is treat John Smith different than Jane Doe, and John Smith and Jane Doe are the same circumstances. So we're evolving that. It's kind of a shooting target a little bit, but right now, what the spirit of this policy is: get vaccinated and get boosted. The only personal point I would make is that if you decided to get your first and your second shot, and then science says that after 6 to 8 months, the efficacy of that shot becomes less so, and this thing is still around, and they're saying, hey, get boosted until we can get above, on top of this thing, then just continue on with what you decided to do in May and June of last year, and there's no issue. Those people who got overly sick with a booster shot, discuss your issues, concerns with your employer, but also with your healthcare physician to discuss what those issues are.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to ask her one simple thing around to see if people to show good faith and that we're part of that policy, that we submit a proof of vaccine and booster to by just a photocopy or whatever, but to provide that. So then we will be covered under that policy and we will be following it. So I'm going to pass it to the vote. Who's in an agreement with that? That we submit a proof of vaccine to, let's say, to mail or to Alicia, whatever. I think it would be to mail to send it. And it could be a copy. So we will be fitting and supporting our home policy and to act as role model. So Mr. Fisher, in favor?
Yeah, can I make a quick point on that? So many of us probably have already. Every time I enter the arena and being a volunteer firefighter, so the municipality definitely has on record that I'm double vaxxed. Thanks.
Oh, okay, well, and well, but you're in agreement with it. That doesn't change you the right to vote. Yes, okay. All in favor?
Can I just add a comment pertaining to it?
Well,
I agree, but that should be our HR department that would be communicating with each member. We may have a document to sign and a requirement for proof, for submitting proof.
okay, Madam Mayor. So, Madam Alicia, can I see you for a minute? Madam Alicia, okay. Could you send us just a kind of a form said, yes, I'm vaccinated and a copy or to do that? Because yeah, it's an HR issue. So it will be whatever faxing or dropping off.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, Conseiller Ravida, is it a question or a comment?
It's a question, and the thing is it's the time frame I want to know, because we were advised that for the booster, there's a certain date.
Okay,
So what's the time frame, Madam Chair?
Well, we gotta follow the time frame that the municipality. We said we're to show a faith that we gotta support the policy. If it's March the 2nd, that should be the date that we have to. And then after that, Madame Alicia can brought us saying, okay, everybody had their proof as council. So
just a supplemental to that, Madam Chair, just to be clear, then what you're saying is that after March 1st, you're under the impression that requesting that HR gets out, asks whether we're vaccinated with the boosters, yes or no?
No.
say that again, Councillor Ravida, I did not get that question clearly. What I'm asking, if we to show good faith for the policy, that we all agree or we disagree, don't have to do it, then we'll know. Don't have to say name. Madame Alicia can come and say there's 6 of you guys that gave me proof, and there's not much we can do. But what I'm asking by March the 2nd or the 1st, whatever, is everybody, and I don't think that Madame Alicia's going to wait till February 22nd to send us something.
No.
So
If I can,
Just to clarify, what the Director of Corporate Services is doing right now is asking for in various departments and what have you. So we'll ask council right now, and she will submit to you what is your vaccination status right now. And so if you've got, if you're double vaxxed and not with booster, fair enough. We'll just know that. It becomes a private issue with Elisa from an HR perspective, and then we'll address different issues with certain counselors who are not fully vaxxed or gone to the booster. But Elisa is requesting what the status is right now with their employees. And so we are then, not that your employees but we are going to be asking you shortly for, I just don't want people to jump the gun on misstatements, Madam Chair. But we'll be asking counselors what their status is, and counselors are free to respond at that point, and we'll have we'll be complying with our portion of the implementation of the policy with all folks.
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Okay, now I conclude this part. The second one is budget. And let me see. Proposed budget process and date. We had received a memo from our CEO, and I'm going to let you read it, and after that, I'll ask you a question. I can read it, but I'm going to ask you, Jay, since it's your memo, to read it, or I can read it. So what do you prefer?
Would you like me to paraphrase it, because it's not in front of me, but since I wrote it, I can probably remember what I was thinking. So what I will say is, like every year, cut, paste with these memos. It's that time of year again. So this year has been a little bit different in terms of councils, getting together, getting to the table, and so on and so forth. So it has an effect on the senior operations and how we've dealt with issues. But we seem to have, for the most part, crossed that barrier. And so we're now putting together our issues or our, the final documents, and we will be prepared to go. Now we have a lot of other things that, unfortunately, fortunately, it's just business, that are also competing with us at the same time with our schedule. So what I've indicated was, and again, it's an assumption, but not that anybody wants to lose a Saturday or whatever, but it has been kind of productive from a continuity perspective. So we're suggesting moving forward on a Saturday. We're recommending, and I spoke to the treasurer. I speak to her often enough, I think. But I've spoken to her about this matter several times. We could be potentially ready to go the week before, but in the abundance of caution, we're suggesting that the earliest date we would be able to get together would be Saturday, the 26th. And so the discussion points the council would want to have is, do you want to get together on a Saturday or not? And if not, then, never mind that date, and we'll just throw some dates like we do at a calendar, like we have in the past, and move forward. So that's the first part. And the second part is basically just, that this year, I thought there was a lot of back and forth and a lot of meetings that council will also agree weren't as productive, depending on your point of view, either points of view or multiple points of view. And so what I'll be trying to do is present you the different information, but assisting you a little bit by providing a much more concrete proposal, given the situation that we have, and then use that document, which might be a little bit more productive for you to come to a final decision if you're happy with 90% of that document and you want to tweak it with your own personal issues. So that's basically what the memo says, Madam Chair.
Okay, so you spoke to the weekend, so are we waiting for the end to see who's in agreement to do a Saturday right now, or we wait till the end of this portion of the discussion? And the other question that I wanted you to elaborate a little bit on your sentence. Is it also our intention to present a budget document that's more closely resemble an end product? Okay, what does it mean? Would it be the same? You can answer. Would it be the same as last year? The documentation we're getting? No. So
Well,
what
you
is it
will
that
be
we're going
getting
to
the
get?
same. The documentation will be the same. We maintain, staff maintains that the budget process is a 2022 budget process. It's not necessarily a review of things, although the documentation and the information will be there for you to refer to or review. But we would like to focus on multi-year plans that we are starting to put into place. Funds available, and they can be adjusted upwards or downwards for council, and provide you with more of a proposal as to what, given the environment right now in the variety of departments, where it goes, and basically move to that. Because at the end, a lot of times what happens is that it just goes down to small adjustments, and then it's left to me to come and find something. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to guess for you. I'm not going to remove any information. We're not shoving anything down your throat, but I just think it would be more helpful for you to provide you with a document that looks, like a budget could be. So in the past, we started with, I remember one time, Councillor Senecal, you were there, my very first kick at this cat. We had a 49% tax increase. I'm not going to comment on the reasons why, and it got down to a 2%. So, you can play around, and everybody, the local newspaper talks about, oh my God, staff is putting forth a 14% tax increase. Woo-hoo. And we always go, no, that's just our starting point. So what I'm going to be doing is basically putting forth something that encapsulates what our needs are, and then what our surplus revenues are, what are tons of different money that people are throwing at us right now, which makes it a little more confusing than regular budgets. How much money do we have, and what do you want? So it could be like, I'm just throwing a number at it, and I don't want to presuppose, but let's say I come in, here's a proposal, here are some decision points that you have, and this amounts to a 2% tax increase. And they go, okay, well, geez, that was easy. Okay, well, let's just tweak that then. What about this, Mr. Public Works guy? Yeah, okay. And then there's tweaking, but at least you have the start of a good template. That's all. I just think that it would help you along and make our process much more streamlined.
Okay, I for one, do you know that I asked for a lot of information, and I'm not expecting less. I think there's some department that I'm expecting a little bit more than we have last year as far as information. So I will, but you did clarify that. So now I'm going to go around and I'll ask Conseiller Duhaime, do you have any question? And I'll keep the date for the weekend date and all the. No, it's not a voting because we're not voting, just direction given to administration for the weekend. Okay. So Conseiller Duhaime, the mic is closed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Other than what you've just mentioned with respect to the weekend, my preference would be not to have weekends, but I have no issues with having meetings during the evening, during the week. I certainly don't. So hopefully that could be accomplished, and we can have our weekends to ourselves. Thank you.
Okay. But I'm going to be asking the vote. Okay. So now I'm up to Councillor Fisher.
Yeah, I do have a quick question, just because it came up in a board meeting. So I think I answered it correctly, but I just want to make sure I did. So we look at places like North Bay and Sudbury, and they've already done their budget for next year, and they've done it a month ago or 2 months ago. And so can we just is this because we have a preference to see our final numbers, or why is their process on such a different timeline than ours? If you understand that, what that means.
Well, I don't want to answer that, but I know that Norby, for example, started last October talking about the budget. So they start before us, obviously, and they had meeting all the time. So last year we finished in May, and that was not the first year that we finished in May. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, but we had the budget approved in many times in March and in May last year. So so who can answer that question? I just said that what I heard. So, Monsieur Barbeau.
Well, there's a reliance here that as an administrator, I have said, and it was refuted by some of you. I don't know if it was 50-50 like everything else, but you don't need to have last year's numbers to come forward with this year's numbers. You need to have an understanding of what happened last year, but you don't need hard and fast numbers. In your case, you've always kind of wanted that, and so you have to wait until our budget, our 2021 closes, the consolidation of that and the preparation of that. So our documents, our 2021 closed last week because there's invoices stuff, like purchases are made in early December, then there's Christmas. So these things need to be cleaned up. But if you were just looking at going forward plans on what you want to do this year and what you want to do on a rolling way, you can do it like any other municipality, and we can start in November. That was our intention 2 years ago when we presented it to you, and that didn't happen. So in this case, here it goes. With respect to how ending in May, I have no comment on that other than to say that we have always done it this way. We have used Saturdays, and in the past they were pretty good, I guess, because without them, we tend to have these little meetings, and I think we had 13 last year, and they just take a ton of time, and then you get, council, how many people can attend, and so on and so forth. So we like to hit the ground running and get a lot of things going, and getting a full presentation going, and then that gets you a little earlier. We have typically approved budgets around mid-March, which isn't too bad. When you start getting into your May issue and you start getting into your evening stuff, as Councillor Duhaime has indicated, you run the risk of, again, having problems with your capital and securing suppliers competitively to bid, because oftentimes they would have bid on other jobs in other communities or in other industries to move forward. And so what I'm trying to propose to you is to, given, without laying blame as to where we are now, but trying to move this organization forward as quickly as we can this year, and getting a budget passed so that we can move on with the contemplated projects that we need.
I'll keep my comment for the end. So did that answer your question, Councillor Fisher?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so now I'm going to go to, oh my God.
No, it's really-
Conseiller Larrabee.
Thank you. I thought you called me God there for a second. No, okay.
Excuse me.
Don't joke. I'd like to echo actually what Jay just said. We've seen budget go in March and then also in May. Usually when we end the budget in March, it's because we do a portion of Saturday. We might not need to do a whole day of Saturday, but usually we handle the bulk, and then we have a few sessions at night, and then we're done with the budget. If we do only at night, then it's going to drag on. And like our CEO just said, it's imperative that we get the contractors. We have to get priority. If we wait too long, the contractors get some commitments elsewhere, and then we have to fit in the cracks, let's say. So that makes it a little bit harder. So for the benefit of the municipality, it's imperative that we start off with capital work like public works, so we can get those contractors dedicated to our work. So I would recommend that we do at least a Saturday. We don't have to do the whole day, and then do some nights. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Conseiller maintenant, Mallette.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I agree with Councillor Rowley to do a Saturday morning, probably maybe 9 to 1 or 8:30 to 12:30, and then get the ball rolling. And what Councillor Larrabee mentioned is the purchasing power. If we do the budget early enough to get the contractors ready for us. So that's my view.
Thank you very much. Conseiller Rubida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In front of me, I have the operational plan and financial budget proposal for 2022 health unit. And this is the one for DSAP. Both processes were similar to what our CAO is suggesting. What they did is they came to the table with something that was tangible, something that we could look at. And as chairman of the finance committee for the operations plan for the health unit, what my message was to the people around the table was have a look at it. If you have any major questions regarding how it was put together, please submit your questions to our CFO. And the process works very well, in as much as we didn't waste time going back and forth. And the same thing with DSAP. There's a major budget. I think our budget's around 89 million. And it was the same process. What our CFO did is provide us with an operational plan and financial budget. And basically, we worked around what he was proposing. And if we had any major objections, then we were able to write to him and have a look at it. So saying that, I think this is a process that would move us forward a little bit faster and move us into trusting our staff and trusting our people around the table that are proposing these budgets, and then to move forward. Because the thing is that we are behind the 8 ball, and I think that this is going to be a new process, and it's going to demand trust, and it's going to demand trust in the people that are working for us to best. I'm sorry. Did you want to cough, Madame Seneca?
Do I have to ask permission to cough, Councillor Rubida?
Oh, I thought you were just trying to throw me off.
Yeah,
okay.
You were trying. Maybe that was a problem. You're thinking. I mean, so thank you. But I'm allowed to cough like somebody are allowed to laugh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think this is a good process, and I'm looking forward to it. And what it provides is it provides us to have some trust in the staff around the table. And I have no problem working on Saturday.
Thank you, Conseiller Rubida. Now we're going to go to Conseiller Senecal. Denis?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you need to cough, it's okay with me.
Thank you.
And I just want to say that Saturdays is out for me, and that the process last year, I wasn't too happy with the process because at the end, we never had a chance to go back and rehash what we had started and like we were promised. So I think the process for me would be to go from one department to the next on a 1-to-1, and then when we finish one department, we move on to the next. At least this way we get all the information we need and want, and then there's no arguing that we need to go back or to continue the process. So I don't think it's a rush thing like you're implying. I think we'll survive a little bit of discussions on the process and the budget, and I think it's very integral part of our jobs to make sure that the monies are spent well, and I think we should take our time and do it department by department and take it as it comes. Thank you.
Thank you, conseiller Denis. Madame la mairesse, maintenant, c'est à ton tour.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to commend A, staff to bring this forward. B, for looking at opportunities on how we can streamline our budget process. C, historically, it's always been around this time, the proposed timeline that the budget started. So we're not behind the 8 ball. And it's not an issue of trust because I do trust staff, as it's been implied. I find that last year we did have a lot of meetings. Some meetings were not even 2 hours. So we should look at whatever timeline that's set for budget process. There should be housekeeping rules or a plan that if we conduct budget meetings, that the meeting should be at least 3 hours to make it effective and efficient. I do look forward, I'm not clear. I love the idea of staff highlighting or summarizing key points, but I definitely would like and appreciate a document with as many details as what we were provided last year and the year before. So I guess I'm asking you, Madam Chair, is that the expectation? We're going to get a document with the same equivalent information that we were provided last year and the year before?
Well, right now we're gonna have the question. There's 2 questions to be asked about regarding what Monsieur Barbeau has proposed, and then the question of Saturday. So the
Okay,
two
well,
there will be.
I want to clarify through you, Madam Chair, will the document be the same
We will,
details?
that's a question, and I'm telling you, that will be the question that will be asked. So with the question that I was thinking of
Okay.
asking after I'm talking, and if you have recommendation after, or Monsieur Barbeau have recommendation, but I think it's gonna be very clear. And so do you have any other comments? You made really good point about the budget, so.
The other comment that I would say is a little bit in line with what Conseiller Denis was saying. There's ways that we can streamline the process as well, because last year we received all the information. And once the information was provided, then we went back department per department on issues that we either agreed or not agreed. As presentation are being provided, council should look at what they agree or don't agree with at that time instead of going back to try to be more efficient. I think also based on the documentation that's being provided, once we got the overview, immediately council should identify what would be their expectation or what would they accept as far as a reasonable tax increase, and not wait till the end and then ask staff to go back and look at synopsis and cut it back and so on and so on, because then it becomes a bidding war. And it was a little bit, I say a bidding war in that way, because if I don't get what I want in my ward, I'm not going to be supporting what you want in your ward instead of looking at the big picture. I've been advocating for quite a few years, and I know that the CEO can attest to that. Every year we've maintained the same amount of expenditures for capital projects, for public works and community services. And if that's a starting point where council says we still believe in investing in our infrastructure and we want to spend the same amount of dollars, maybe more depending on revenues, but the same amount of dollars, what prohibits us to be able to at least approve the template for projects for the same amount of dollars to start off with? That would resolve the issue of Conseiller Rowley saying that we need to get out of the gate as soon as possible to start awarding contracts to contractors. We don't have to treat capital projects only at the end. It should be treated at the beginning. But I'm just highlighting that, Madam Chair, because there are opportunities to streamline it and there are opportunities to be effective. But I am looking for all the information, and I'll state that and put that on record. Unfortunately, for personal reasons, I'm not available for a Saturday. Those are the only 2 days, consecutive days, my husband doesn't have treatments, and I'm committed to not attend meetings on weekends for personal reasons. And I think that's my personal decision. Even if we meet on a Saturday for 3 hours, it doesn't make a difference versus an evening for 3 hours.
Moving
So I'm
forward,
stating,
Madam Chair,
Jose
What
Dan,
is,
point of order.
what is your point of order?
My
What
point of
is,
order is we're trying to move forward, and the mayor continues to talk on and talk on and talk on. I want us to move forward. That's my point of
okay,
order.
it's not a point of order, conseiller, because I have at the first discussion we have, it lasted on a policy that it's already been passed and tabled and voted in. We passed
Madam
it about an hour. So
Madam Chair,
everybody
all I'm
have the right, excuse me, conseiller Dan,
All I'm asking you is to answer my point of order,
I
please.
said it's
I-
overruled because she have the same right as everybody to talk, and if you don't like.
I'd like to appeal your point. I'd like.
Which, well, tell me which section of your,
I
that
don't
you
have
want to
tell you
put
what
that.
section. I
You don't know
have,
the section, then you don't
I
know the
don't
point
have
of order.
I'm telling you that there's this.
Madam Chair,
Madame,
Madame
no,
Madam
no,
Chair.
no, no, Madame la mairesse, I'm going to deal with that. Conseiller Rowley, give me the reason and
C'est
the
pas
reason you
conseiller
gave
Rowley,
me
c'est
for your
conseiller
point.
Dan.
Consuelo Rowley, will you answer the question, please?
No, nobody's going to answer. I'm putting, listen, if somebody talks another word, including the mayor, you, Councilor Rowley, I'm going to ask you to leave because I'm chairing that meeting. Or I know you're not scared of anything, like you don't give excuse. I know that, Councilor Rowley. So what I'm saying right now, I'm going back to the point of order that Conseiller Dan said, and your point of order is because you think that Madame Mayor speak too much. That's your thought. That's okay. You said so, but that's not a point of order. She have the same right to ask question or to comment on what she's saying. So do you have
Madam-
anything else? It's overruled, your point of order.
Madam Chair, Robert's rule would say that.
We're not doing Robert's
no,
rule right now.
Madam
We're doing a
Chair,
procedure.
Madam Chair, you're asking me to explain my situation, and I'm going to tell you, Robert's rule states that one person should not posture more than 5 minutes. We've been posturing on this, and I want to advance the agenda. That's all I'm asking.
Okay, you know what, Madam Chair, I just have one final comment, if I may.
Yes, you
I'll
may.
I'll make sure to verify the live stream to see if I've spoken 5 minutes, and if I have not, I will be seeking an apology by Councillor Dan for continuously interrupting when I'm speaking, because there's nothing in our procedures that says you are not allowed to ask questions or provide your opinion. And I was providing my
Thank you, Madam
opinion.
Mayor. Thank you, Madam
So I
Mayor.
put that on record,
Madam
and
Chair,
the
you-
next time that Conseiller Dan does provide me with, does interrupt me, which is against, our procedures of interrupting and not being respectful towards others, I will call a point of order and I will ask you to enforce that point of order, because I find that Conseiller Dan right now is being so disrespectful towards any people that he does not want to hear or want people to speak. I've got my say. Thank you.
Okay, well, first of all, the point of order for you, Councillor Dan, it's overruled. For you, Madam Mayor, you go back, you check the thing, and if you come back with it, if you didn't speak your 5 minutes, and I find that very, very sad to hear, because we have people, Rowley, Councillor Rowley, how long did you talk? You said you had 3-4 questions and you came back. Nobody questioned that you were talking too long and disturbing Monsieur Barbeau because, he was listening. I did not complain. I tried to make a joke. It did not work. So I think people, it's really sad. And we're talking about trust. I feel right now, really feel right now, it's not the staff that some of us doesn't trust. It's the people we work with, because we cannot work with people that doesn't want to work as a team. That's my thought. So this is closed. I'm going to finish with the only comment. I'm not going to comment. I'm just going to go and vote. Who's in favor are going for Saturday? 1, 2, 3, 4 defeated. Okay, that's one. Now, who's in favor of getting, I think there's half that people want a mix, Monsieur Barbeau, that what you said, projecting, but we want basically information from last year to try to compare and mix with what you did propose to do. Yes, Monsieur Barbeau.
Well, thank you. Yes, what I was suggesting is we're going to package it in a way where we're going to give you the analytical information, but that we're going to be putting it and giving you some of the pros and cons, strengths and weaknesses, situation as to why we're going this way, and so that you understand in every department where we're going. Departments' wishes, other than capital, which is stuff you put outside, department operations really, is something that department heads bring forward. Now, if there's what's called material changes in operations, I want 15 new clerks. Well, obviously, that's a major strategic change in operation, and it's a decision point. That's a very concrete decision point by council. So what you're going to be receiving is last year's information, a roll-up of last year's information. You're going to have departmental budgets, but you're also going to have a document that shows strategic changes in operations and why they exist this year, given COVID, grants available, surpluses available, and all of that. And you're going to get that packaged into a group package that provides you with something that you may or may not like. Some of them, from what I understand, may not like it on principle, but I'm hoping that when you see it, that it meets a consensus of council for this year. Does that tell you? So basically, you're going to get all the info. I'm just going to give you a little bit more of points to help you move forward. That's all.
Okay, so what you're saying, we got to get info from last year, and then you're going to give us a lot. So does anybody have any question about that? Everybody's okay with that?
Yeah, may I ask a question, Madam Chair?
Yes, you can ask one question.
I need to laugh. Sorry. Okay. So I was going to ask the question, when is the documentation going to be ready? Is it realistic to say that if we were targeting February 26th, that it could be available the Tuesday of that week?
I'm going to say conceptually, yes.
Okay.
We do run an operation. It seems logical, but if I miss by a day or two, please forgive me ahead of time.
No, the reason I was asking, I understand, but I was just asking because I know that the last Tuesday of February, there's no scheduled meeting of council, and that could be an option instead of looking at a Saturday. That's just the reason I was asking.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
To you, Madam
Thank you.
Chair,
Yep.
Madam Chair, just to go on the mayor's point, if you're not in favor and it doesn't look like you are for Saturdays, then we will come up with a list of dates or to hold special budget meetings.
Okay, thank you. So my last comment is I do understand that last year in this, well, Conseiller Fisher, is that related to
I'm just gonna, as soon as you're done, I just want to make a motion for a recess. That's all, Lisa. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, my only point is that I like the idea of incorporating what you're saying, Monsieur Barbeau. I just like to have information, and like I said, I never questioned the staff capability or Madame Alicia be able to work with number. That's not the point. The reason there's a lot of delay, I could say that not my fault because I attended every meeting. I even waited for the other one. So obviously to say it and all of that, and to say that Saturday morning we could do 3 hours, a 3-hour Saturday morning or a night is the same amount of time in my book, 3 hours there. So I'm glad that, so there's no Saturday. You're gonna come up, send us information, and you'll try to have the package ready for us before, like I think you mentioned, date the 28th was done. So maybe, so we'll go with that. So thank you very much. And now I'm gonna ask Madame Mayor, not Madame Mayor, Madame Mel to read the resolution for a break. Your mic is
Need a
on.
mover
Okay.
and a seconder, Madam Chair, for the motion, please. Councillor Fisher. Councillor Duhaime. It is moved by Councillor Fisher and seconded by Councillor Duhaime at approximately 8 p.m. 8:02 p.m. A motion was tabled for a 15-minute recess, following which council will continue. Call it to a vote? Somebody call it to a vote?
I'm going to ask if everyone is in favor. Carried.
You?
See, shoot, what's going on? Pretty quiet.
Cossy, Denis, you're not on mute.
Okay, thank you.
Ça peut parler à ses chiens.
Ben oui.
He
Okay,
said, pause. You are neither one of you on mute. Whoops. Would I be correct, Mel, if to say that we only have 1 more minute left remaining for the recess?
Actually, we have no more minutes left.
Okay, thank you for clarifying it. So hopefully everyone is coming back ASAP so we can proceed. So who are we missing?
Oh,
Okay,
Councilor Dan.
so we do have quorum. Okay, so in the interim, we'll proceed with the next committee, and the next committee on the agenda is Planning, Planification, and I'll pass it on to our chair, Conseiller Denis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's 2 items. The first one deals with expressions of interest, and there's 4 appraisals, I guess, and I'll let Melanie carry on.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Try to be as succinct as possible. I tried to include as much information in the agenda as possible. As you'll recall, last year we had entertained a bunch of offers on a bunch of different properties that the municipality owns. And after getting them appraised and communicating the price to people, what I received were counter offers, which I have included both what the appraised value we received and what the counter offer were, and also correspondence from the individuals with their rationale. So the first one was for Moray Street in Field, having an appraised value of 25 to 30,000 and a counter offer of 5. Although as I noted in my note, the appraiser did indicate that he had difficulty finding comparables for this property. Now, not in any event, he did place a value of 25 to 30,000 on it, while also noting that the property can't be developed because it is too small. So I'm asking council's direction with regard to the proposed counter offer and where we want to go with this one.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I guess, is there any comments? Chris and Leo?
So I have a more sweeping comment. I didn't realize we'd take them one at a time. So from a public policy point of view, like it's public land. So when I look at those 4, I look at number 3 and I'm okay with that one because they come in at the bottom of the appraised value. But I'd be very hesitant personally to give public property to sell public property for less than its appraised value. So of those 4, I look at number 3 and that looks okay. And then the other thing to look at on them are conditions attached. So if we're selling something for X thousand of dollars, but then the taxpayer's also on the hook for, I don't know, a drainage ditch or which costs more, then I also have a difficulty with that. So just as my broad opinion on these, I'm okay with number 3, but I certainly don't want to sell anything less than appraised value. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fisher. Councillor Leo?
Okay, thank you. Are we dealing with each one at a time?
Well, I thought we were, but if you want to deal with all of them, like Councillor Fisher, that's okay too.
Okay. Well, then I agree with Councillor Fisher with number 3. The other 3, no.
Okay. Noted. Thank you, Councillor Leo. Councillor Rowley, then Councillor Dan.
Yes, I do agree. We need to go with again, with number 3 is okay. And as far as the municipality putting in a culvert on one of those deals that I read, this goes right against our municipal policy. The first culvert is installed by the landowner or the one that wants to have access to it, and then the municipality takes care of those culverts there on after. So I agree with number 3. The other ones would need to go to the appraised value, even if it's at the bottom of the appraised value. I still think they should go at the bottom at the appraised value. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowley. Councillor Dan.
Yeah, I tend to agree with my colleagues, but I guess it's a question to Melanie, through you, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind.
Okay.
So in regards to the counter offer, is there a counter offer, Melanie? Like, do we negotiate? Like, if we don't accept their counter offer, can council give you the authority to go back and say, yes, no, they don't accept your counter offer. However, we will go with the lower end of the appraised value?
Through Mr. Chair, yeah, that's the process. If council, is not accepting these counters, I'll go back and say, nope, bring the price up to the bottom end of the appraised value, no conditions and no add-ons, and that's fine. And in the event that they are not, don't want to go forward with it, then it's, they pay the cost of the appraisal as originally agreed, and it goes away, and they still own the land.
Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Denis, I would just, I agree with what's been proposed, and that
Number 3.
Yeah, number 3, I'm all right with it.
And the rest, you want the bottom appraisal, or at least?
Well, yeah, at least.
Okay. And Councillor Lees.
We're on mute, Councillor Lees.
You're on mute.
I agree with number 3 also, and for the rest, if they would go to at least the bottom line of the appraisal, I would agree also. But at this point of time, only number 3, and if you can go back, and if you get, at least in my part, so I guess we gotta be the majority to agree that if they go to the bottom line and no condition on it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sénécal. Mayor Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I do concur. Number 3, it fits the parameters within the appraised value, the counter offer 65 and the appraised value 65 to 70. All the other ones are way below. Just a quick question. The fact that we do not accept the counter offer, would we be required to advertise these lands as being declared surplus, and then this way it opens the door for other counter offers as well?
Mr. Chair, that's a decision of council. These were sole source offers, but if council wants to give direction, we can certainly put them out to a public tender process and see what with a minimum bid, and see what kind of offers we get. I wouldn't recommend the one on Lawrence Street. It's a half a road allowance. It's not really big enough. I don't recommend putting that one out, but the other properties, certainly if that would be council's wish, or we can just keep them in our inventory and do what we do.
Okay, if I may continue, Mr. Chair.
Supplement, Madam Mayor, yes.
Okay, well, based on the recommendation of the clerk, whatever's the other 2 would be, there's no restrictions in receiving offers for those parcel of lands. And in the event that we can get the high end of the appraised value, it would also be a benefit to the taxpayers. I see that our clerk has may wish to add additional information to that matter.
I just to the other, the one, the Colette Street right of way, that's just a right of way. So again, that's not a public offering either. So
Okay.
really the only one for public offering would be the Moraine Street property.
Okay, so then I take back my comments, Mr. Chair. There'd be only one property, Moraine Street. The fact that it's valued up to 30,000 and we got a counter offer of 5, I think would merit that we advertise it, and the other ones that we go back to the proponents. Do we inform the proponents of the appraised value so they know exactly what what's the appraisal? Also, they know. And even if we go out to advertise to receive offers, there would be a minimum bid, and the minimum bid would be the appraised value.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, I think there's, Chris, I know your hand is up, but I'll go to Yvonne to get him first and then Chris.
And I agree with what
And,
was said, Mr. Chair. I'm not going to repeat, so I just agree with what was said. With number 3, I have no problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor John. Okay, Councillor Chris.
Thank you, Councillor Senecal. I just want to get some clarification on number 1 because it is slightly different. So the land can't really be developed and it's essentially, I imagine, useless to anybody else. No comparable recent land sales to base opinion, but still the appraisal that the appraiser feels that its minimum value is $25,000. That's I don't know what they do at that point, and there's a gut feeling from experience or whatever. Can you just elaborate on that for me?
Sure, through you, Mr. Chair. These are 2 little lots. In the 70s, the town of Field acquired quite a number of small residential properties on which there were homes at one time. They were in the flood. These little properties were acquired for that exact reason. I couldn't tell you whether there were houses on them at one time or not. They're 2 little parcels of record in the floodplain. I don't know. They're bounded on 3 sides by the proponent's property and the highway on the one side. So whether they're useful to someone other than them, I suppose that's an opinion. They're too small they're each to sustain a water and a septic tank, although I don't know for sure whether if you put them together, you might be able to do something like that, but that's about as much as I know.
Thank you.
Councillor Ravida.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't personally feel comfortable jumping to having its offered to the public right off the bat. I think that we should provide direction to Mrs. Duchamp in as much as talking to the proponent and asking if they're willing to the counter offer. And then from there, if they said no, then maybe we could go out but I don't feel comfortable that we jump to going to an open competition for that piece of land when we know that the piece of land is landlocked and that it's only going to serve a purpose to those people that live right there. That's my comment.
For clarification, we would do that anyways, Councillor Ravita. We wouldn't just put it out to tender without informing the other person.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so did I miss anybody? Leo, no. Okay, so I'm in.
My marching orders.
You got them?
I think so.
So we're gonna go with 03, and that's okay. And the rest is to contact the sellers and see if they want to augment their prices.
Yeah, first.
Okay, and then we'll move on to where is it? Resolution? No. I'm lost here. Where am I? Proposed.
The item.
E2B. RFP for Villeneuve Court.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Melanie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick summary of my memo, which was in about this time last year. We had received 2 separate unsolicited offers to purchase for the property that's located on the southeast corner of Villeneuve Court. So it would be the vacant land immediately adjacent to ASM and across from the old Cisco building, just to visually orient you, on the south side of Bay, corner of Bay and Villeneuve. Anyways, at the time, council had determined that it was a, good piece of land. Perhaps we should go out and see, what we could, get in terms of proposals for actual development on the land. So we prepared and issued a request for proposal on the property. It did take a little longer. We had a lot of difficulty getting an appraisal last summer. The appraisers were run off their feet with the crazy real estate market, but finally did get an appraisal of the property and put it out for proposal. We did receive one proposal, and I've included a portion of the proposal. As I indicated, there was information in the proposal document itself, which may or may not be of a proprietary nature. So I did not include the whole thing. However, the basic premise is that the property is being proposed to be developed into a number of residential lots along, I'm assuming that is a private road with a shared access to the river. As indicated in my memo, this is industrially zoned and employment designated property in our official plan and our zoning bylaw. It's flanked on 3 sides by industrial land on Bay Street and on the other side of Villeneuve. It's designated employment in our official plan. However, this proponent is seeking to, I am assuming, go through the process to change it to residential, if successful. As I indicated, this is, I believe, the only fully serviced and serviceable piece of industrial property in the municipality's inventory currently. I've outlined what would need to be done by the proponent if, in fact, council were to accept this offer. What would need to go through the official plan process, zoning bylaw amendment. They would have to obtain a record of site condition, which would entail a phase 1 and potentially a phase 2 environmental assessment for the property, because it is a known industrial site and considered a brownfield. There's a fairly sizable drainage ditch on the west boundary of the property, which would be required to be looked at in terms of how it's managed. On an industrial site, it would be less intrusive. However, with residential, it's quite a deep ditch and would be, it may prove problematic with residential development more so than industrial. In any event, I've indicated in my memo that I don't recommend this simply because it would be eroding our industrial land base, and it could potentially result in land use conflicts in the future. Generally, co-locating industrial and residential can prove problematic. So, not that it isn't a good offer and a great idea. I'm just not entirely sure it might not be the right location. So I'll leave that council with that information to consider.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'll go around table here. Yvonne, you're the first one. Councillor Zine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to agree with Mel's proposal here because, it's unfortunate. I don't disagree with the project. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a great project. If there was ways and means of accommodating the person that wants to invest in the property as such to relocate in another area, if we can accommodate situations like that so that he can proceed with his project, I'd be more than favorable to do that, especially in an area where obviously he can or they can. And but to be placed in that particular, and I know that piece of property, it's unfortunate that there's no buffers on either side or anything to actually please the situation. And it's unfortunate that it's not quite a good area. And then within the industries on both sides, it could be a problematic in the future years. So it's unfortunately, I can't accept this, but I would accept working with the personnel to see if we can find a property within our community so that if they're really willing to invest 25 houses, 25 lots, to establish 25 lots, that would be something that we should really look into in trying to promote and help people as such. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jaime. Councillor Fisher.
And so I'm just wondering what the actual, I don't see it, maybe it's here somewhere, but what the actual appraised value we did get back on that land was?
Let me just quickly grab the file here. Sorry, I neglected to include that in my memo. My apologies. The value came in at $100,000.
Okay, and that the proponent was willing to pay that much too, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so, you know, as per, basically they're putting that so that there was a street down the middle and sort of closing it off from the industrial section. I have no problem with that, and I would support it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Fisher. Councillor Leo.
I think it's Councillor Rowley first, I think.
Okay, if you insist, Councillor Rowley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'm looking at this project here, and 25 lots is a good chunk of change as far as tax revenue at the end of the year, and plus the sale of this property, plus the resident that would buy in that area, they know that it's all around. It could be industrial, or it could, you know, it could be noisy. So it's not like this project would be there and then they would go into industrial. It's already there, so the people would know. So I'm in favor of this. I'm in favor. This is a beautiful project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowley. Councillor Leo, that's your turn now.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I also agree to sell our property for, and it's the appraised value. And if ever he has problems with it, he's stuck with it. I mean, it would be industrial. So I see no problem to sell it to him. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Leo. Councillor Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for Madame Duchamp. The lot that we're speaking specifically, who are adjacent to that lot? Like, you know, we see the proposal, and I think the lot that we're planning to sell doesn't cover all the area that he is going to develop. Am I right? Or
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chair. The property that he's going to develop consists of all of what the municipality formerly owned. So between ASM and the corner, if you can visually orient yourself. You will recall that in 2020, the municipality had sold a chunk of that property to another individual, which was a deal negotiated with respect. He had purchased from us. We had also purchased from him an easement on another property to accommodate some sewer and water infrastructure. So it wasn't a swap, but there was a buy from us and buy from them. So we sold a portion of it to another individual who sold it to this proponent. So he owns, on the picture you have in your agenda, he sort of owns the half where lots 1 through 12 would be located, and lots 13 to 25 are on the portion of property that we still own.
okay, thank you. Supplemental. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you. So basically, he's taking part of his lot, adding that piece of property that he's bidded on, and putting it together and making like it'll be like nearly a gated community. So saying that, I have no issue with it. To say that we could, provide him with other land, He already owns a piece of the land, so all he's trying to do is complement that land. And in as much as that, if he is willing to take the chance of doing all the criteria that you're asking for, like getting an environmental assessment, trying to fix the drainage portion, et cetera, well, we're selling the land as is, and it'll be up to him to conform to what you're requesting, what we're requesting as a planning issue. So I have no issue with it, because the thing is, we know we have a housing shortage in the community, and housing is one of the priorities for all of us. And the thing is that it would just complement the municipality of having 25 new residents in our community. So I have no issue with it, as long as he knows he's purchasing it as is, and he'll have to meet the conditions.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Vida. Mayor Joanne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The project is a wonderful project, but I'm going to concur with the recommendation of staff due to the fact that the official plan and the zoning bylaw states that that parcel of land is zoned heavy industrial. I concur there's a need for new residences in West Nipissing. It's just not a proper fit, a proper quilt within the development of the land base. It would be unfair to the industries that are within that local surrounding. And there'd be probably, like our clerk has identified, land use conflicts in the long run because of the type of vehicle that are commuting on that road, the type of traffic, and to develop a residential area in an industrial area of our municipality is not a good blend. We had a company that wanted to acquire that parcel of land for potential employment opportunities, and they were discouraged from pursuing that matter. I think that there's an opportunity, if there's individuals that want to invest in the creation of 24 lots for new homes, that as the municipality and with the resources of our municipality, work with these individuals to find other suitable land base for such development. So unfortunately, I know I'm going to be scrutinized, but I'm following what we have in our official plan and zoning. It was land that was given to us by Warehouser, and we don't have that much heavy industrial zone land in our backyard. And that location is already servicing industries. And as a matter of fact, across the street, we have a new welding establishment or a plant that was newly constructed, I think, a year and a half ago. So there's opportunities for that type of development, and that's where it does exist. So unfortunately, I cannot support the initiative as presented.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Lees. You're on mute.
My first question is, how many acre, Madam Melanie?
It's about 270 feet of frontage. I think it's just shy of 4.
Okay, 4 acre, and we just sold a property. We had a property that's been sold for what? Under that, I think.
3.65, Councilman.
2.65. Okay,
3.65
so. And another thing, I think we have another industrial lot. I don't remember the Leblanc, Leblanc, and what is that street?
Where the abattoir was?
Well, there was a proposed buyer for that, but anyways, the fact remains that it's an industrial, and we might say whatever we want to say, but I mean, there were complaints made about just, again, and the buffer was there and everything was there. So I don't, it's industrial and it should remain that. We don't have much in West Nipissing. And I know we need, I don't know if we need houses as much as apartment building. And we had refused a couple because of parking issue, but the fact remain, I think cows, there's a development on King Street. There's 44 lot there, housing, and all the lot, I think there's maybe 2 that's not sale. So we're gonna see a major development there. I know that the lot at the back of my house right now has been sold to a company of Toronto, and there's a development that has been approved there, and there's 44 lot. So I cannot approve that because I don't think we can mix. We don't have much. We cannot an industry, and I repeat myself, that would employ 2,000 people, that's clear. But we have small industry that might be interested or extending at some point of time, because correct me if I'm wrong, we're still waiting for something for the other one that would expand his business if it goes through. So I cannot approve that right now. And that's my rationale, and my rationale is based on facts. So thank you.
Thank you, Madam Councillors. So I guess I'm the only one remaining, and I agree with staff that we shouldn't be mixing our heavy industrial land with residential. We're just asking for problems. We have lots of development in the housing sector. What we need is more industrial base for our economy. And I think we should keep these lands on reserve if we can, or hopefully sell them to industries. But I think the whole area was meant for industry, and that's why we kept it. And I wouldn't go against the official plan and the zoning bylaws, and I agree with staff. So my answer is not to sell. So that brings us to 4 no's and 4 yes, so it's defeated.
May I add a comment, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Well, I'm glad we're doing that, so it shows that we're trusting staff rational and
Okay, thank you, Madam.
no problem. No, but it's nice to
That's
meet.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, you have your
I do. Thank you
your
very much.
direction, and that's it for planning. I'm giving the floor back to the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We proceed to the next committee, emergency measures, public safety, mesures d'urgence et sécurité publique. I'll pass it on to the chair. Councillor Chris.
Thank you. I have 3 items. The request to amend the off-road vehicle bylaw, no wait zone at the Levine Bridge, and a COVID-19 update. So the request has come in, and as I understand it, we have in the past moved in lockstep when the MTO have changed their approvals, and it seems that they have changed their approvals on off-road motorcycles, and extreme terrain vehicles, which are Argo type vehicles. As I understand it, and Mr. Larrabee actually has spoken to the proponent of this, or one of the local businesses that wants this. So I will indulge Mr. Larrabee for a minute, if you'll allow it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, after I've seen this request, I went to see the dealer, and I wanted to know more and about this. And as I'm going to read a little bit on this, it's pretty well self-explanatory. The dealer says, I'm requiring to see if the municipality of West Nipissing has the intention to amend their current off-road vehicle bylaw to include off-road motorcycles as per the new MTO approvals. It would greatly benefit our businesses and our community, making our roads more accessible to wider demographic. So, and if you look at the picture that he sent to us, we've already approved the 4-wheelers, the ATV, the UTVs, and now the province has allowed the 2 wheels off-road and also the Argos. And it's very specific on where they could ride on the road. They have to be on the shoulder at half the speed posted. If there is no shoulder, they have to be to the extreme right of that road going into the same direction as traffic. So you need to be 16 years old. You have to have a G2 or M license, and so it's all pretty well self-explanatory, and I definitely support this endeavor, and we need to, as municipality of West Nipissing, to approve these so those riders can access our roads. We do have a lot of gravel roads, so and even highways. But then this is the highways are MTO, so they're approved on that. So that's it for me, Councillor Fisher. Mr.
Thank you,
Chair.
Councillor Larrabee. I will just actually make one more comment that I forgot. I did prior to this. I've already run this by the OPP, and they saw no problem with it. So I'll open it to the floor. Councillor Dehaene.
I have no problem in allowing this. The only thing I know we have a noise bylaw, but as we all know, these bikes have loud mufflers, and I can just foresee the people complaining about the loudness of the mufflers, but I have no problem allowing them on the road. So I hope we can rectify that situation, and that, but the bylaw noise bylaw will do that, but unfortunately we will get problems with the noise. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Millet.
Yes, okay with it, too.
Thank you, Councillor Ravita.
No issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I just want to clarify the information that Councillor Rowley provided. Well, we see the photos of it, and when we look at an extreme terror vehicle, which looks like a recreational vehicle that is to be used, for natural or excursions in the woods or other type of terrain landscape. Would this be allowed in our downtown in Sturgeon Falls? Like, I know there's the exclusion of Main Street, King Street, Queen Street, and William, but all other streets in downtown, we would be allowing these type of vehicles in residential areas as a travel. I don't have a problem if it's for pleasure to leave the home to get to a certain destination, depending on the type of vehicle. But I wonder what would be the reaction of our residents downtown in residential areas and urban areas with children. And these would be the type of recreational vehicles that are being driven on the shoulders of highways. And when we say highways, we classify them as our streets, right? Would that be correct?
So I'm going to leave that up to somebody with more expertise than me, but I would say that what we're doing is we're just lining these up with all the other all-terrain vehicles that we already permit. So we already permit the 2-ups and the ATVs and the utes. So I don't think it's much different, but perhaps I'm not sure if that's a question for the CAO or a question for Melanie.
I just want to make sure I understand clearly.
My understanding, and Jay can correct me if I'm
Go
wrong,
ahead.
it's just simply, as Councillor Fisher said, we already allow all-terrain vehicles, four-wheelers, and side-by-sides on our streets in town, and obviously in our rural areas, not allowed on Front Street, and they can only cross at certain areas across Front Street, but otherwise, yes, these would just add to the complement.
Okay, but I'm just looking at the definition when they say extreme terrain vehicle. I mean, they don't seem to be like just the standard four-wheeler. So I don't know. I'm not even sure on this issue because I'm trying to visualize the concept of seeing these type of vehicles circulating in urban areas, residential sectors. If it's a fit, do we have the ability to say, do we have to provide the same inclusion as what we do for other type of vehicles? Do we have the capability that these type of vehicles, like the extreme terrain vehicle, can we say that those vehicles can be used in rural areas, on rural roads?
We can do whatever this council wishes. It's
Okay,
entirely within this council's purview to limit or allow whatever.
okay. Like A, I'd like to be able to entertain, support business issues. But then B, I'd like to see what would be the reaction of individuals if they support this type of vehicle in urban areas, or if it has to be restricted to rural areas. That's my opinion.
Okay, so I just to make a comment, the extreme terrain vehicle is really just an auto, and I guess from a safety perspective, they're not actually as fast as they're not as dangerous as the other vehicles, I would guess anyway. So I'm a little stuck here. Do I take this to a vote? I mean, I think we have, I understand the mayor's comment, but I don't know where to go with it. Somebody help me out here.
Well,
Barb?
Mr. Senecal, you were first.
Thank
Okay,
you,
well-
Mr.
Mrs. or Mr.? Go with Mr.
Okay, Mr. Senecal, please.
Well, it is the first time I win.
No, I win, and I won't say why.
Never mind. I think that I know the Argos. I've had some and I know how they work, and they're pretty much a safe vehicle. They don't go very fast, and I think they're similar to the I don't know what you would call them, those four-wheel buggies they have, which I think I see them on the highway all the time here, and I don't think there's any danger. I don't know about in town if there's a prohibition on them, but I think we should follow the provincial policy and go with it. But maybe we should ask the OPP to give us a little course on it. Maybe, I don't know. But if they agree, there shouldn't be an issue. Anyways, just to appease you, Madam Mayor, the Argo is not a very fast vehicle, and it's sturdy, and just as sturdy as the off-road vehicle, the bikes and all those. So anyways, I'm in favor.
Thank you, Councilor Lee Senecal.
Okay, well, I don't have a major concern for the Argo because, I mean, it's a slowest vehicle than what is already allowed. The bike, it's a little bit more because of the noise. But my concern is really because when you look at everything, you take out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 vehicles, then you take the trucks, you take the big trucks, and then you take the van, you take the car. I mean, I think Main Street and for the noise, and don't forget that now one of the issue that was brought a couple of times by Councillor Roulet, and it's becoming an issue, is the fact there are a lot of people are driving their small whatever because they cannot walk. And so, I mean, at some point of time, I think residential, I mean, it's gonna become, and every year they come with a new model and new shape and a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, and I don't know, like, I'm not sure about that. I mean, obviously the majority is already made, but I do have concern about that, and for the downtown core. And I mean, because there's a lot of people, senior people walking and blah, blah, blah. So yes, I'm finished.
Chris.
Mr. Babo.
Is it my understanding that you're adding a classification of a side-by-side? Is that what's going on here? Is that what it is? Because the restrictions that have always existed, none of those are allowed in the downtown core if you read your bylaw. None of them are allowed within 100 meters of a school if you read your bylaw. And so if you haven't seen a ton of quads or a ton of other vehicles driving around, you're likely not going to see a lot of those either, not in those restricted areas. As was indicated, I think this is just to make our bylaw current to reflect the fact that there's these new additional vehicles. So there's Argos, yes, that's a brand name, but there's also others. And it's all-terrain vehicles. So it's basically just an all-terrain vehicle. So there'd be some language in there because the old all-terrain vehicles had like quads or tricycles or whatever, motorized trikes or whatever, and had one person on it. So that language needs to be addressed a little bit because these things have been addressed. But that's the intent of what is being requested by RL here, is just basically to modernize that with the same restriction that we don't want ATVs all over our downtown core and in areas that could be harmful.
Thank you, Mr. Barbeau.
Thank you. So I think we pretty much have consensus on that. Rolly, do you have your hand up, or is my
Yes.
screen frozen?
No,
Go ahead.
no, thank you, Mr. Chair. No, it's just to clarify a comment that was made with the problems we're having with our sidewalks, the heavy chairs, the wide chairs. These are not allowed to be on sidewalks. The chairs are, but not these. These are going to be on the side of the road. So that comment would not go with that. And like Mr. Our CAO said, they would be allowed only where the rest of the ATVs and UTVs are allowed. Wherever the ATVs, UTVs are not allowed, these would not be allowed also. This is what I would support. Thank you.
But if I may, Mr. Chair, I just want to clarify a point. I think what Councillor Elise was alluding to the fact is, i.e. the scenario of the sidewalk on the bridge, where individuals that have motorized bikes or motorized wheelchairs, they need to be on the shoulder of the road because of the width of the sidewalk. I think that was an issue that was brought to council that we discussed. So, and yeah, the bylaw does define exactly exclusions, but the exclusions are strictly for 4 roads, and that's why I brought it up. But you know what? I have no objection if council has majority and wants to introduce it. But I just say that everyone's entitled to their opinion.
Okay, so I think in general we agree. But the bylaw obviously needs to be adjusted and brought back. And at that time, perhaps if you want to think more about streets put on an exclusion list, we could do that as well. Is that fair to say, Melanie? Mr. Haim?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So moving on. Where am I? E3B, no wake zone at the bridge. This is brought to us by Councillor Senecal, so I'm going to pass it to him, and perhaps you can explain what you're looking for, Councillor Senecal.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you know, this is the bridge I'm talking about is the one that's on Highway 64, and that's splitting the west bay of Lake Nipissing in this area in sort of 2. So we have one side that it's the open lake, and the other side I'll call the Bay of Laving. So what's happening is this bridge acts as a funnel. So everything goes under that bridge to cross over to the Laving Bay. Let's say we're coming down from the east, the open lake. So you're coming down from the open lake and you're cruising along. And so what happens is you have to either slow down to cross under the bridge, or you keep going as fast as you want. And there's no limit, and there's nothing stopping you or preventing you from going at the speed you wish. But there's a safety issue here that everybody has to go under this. I'd say it's about 20 feet wide access under the bridge. And when you're close to the bridge, you're losing your line of sight, right? So you don't know what's going on the right or the left side of, let's say, the west side of the bridge. So you don't know what's coming at you. There's a lot of fishermen and canoeing and stuff. There's a lot of activity there in the summer. There's those Sea-Doos watercrafts. They're flying all over. They're even renting them around in this area. So it's getting more and more busy to cross that bridge. that's the safety issue there. And then we have the lodge on the would be the south side. That's pretty close to the bridge, but you have to go there. You're right in front of that lodge to pass under the bridge. So people just maybe they do slow down, but they slow down at the last minute. So you're not preventing the wake that's causing harm to his docks. And he also has a little side business. He has like 3 yachts there. I think they're about, they must be about 30 feet. So he rents that out for a night or two to get the yacht experience. But that's also an issue causing harm to those big boats. And he's saying he's putting a lot of work in those docks to keeping them up to par. And so he's asking for a no wake zone, so people would slow down. Maybe coming from the especially from the open lake, they would slow down maybe at 200 yards, or we'd have a buoy there saying no wake zone, so slow down, and then you can progress and cross the bridge, and you can do that from the other side too, because this is an eventual accident waiting to happen. There's too much traffic. There's people. He's renting out these watercrafts. Some are used to it. Some are just maybe the first time rental. I don't know if there's courses, but I'm not against that. I'm just saying that you don't have the experience that a boater from that's used to Lake Nipissing. So anyways, that's pretty well where I'm going with this. And first is the safety, and then for the protection of property. And it would prevent erosion on the bridge and maybe help our docks there on the side, but they're far away that they're not that affected. But anyways, so the point is, if we want to have a no wake zone there, we need to, the municipality is the only entity that could apply to Transport Canada to get a DOK for this. So that's why I'm bringing this to council, so that we direct staff to look into it and maybe start the application procedure. I know it's a very intensive application process. I think they review the applications in August or something once a year. So I'll leave it at that. I think and that also would, if there's a no wake zone, well, that gives the OPP a chance to enforce the laws a little bit. Now they have no, unless you're, I think it's 30 meters from shore, they can slow you down to 6 or 9 miles an hour. But otherwise, if you're too far out, they have no authority to slow you down. So that would help with enforcement also. So that's pretty well all the points I wanted to bring forth.
Thank you.
So I'll send it back to you, Mr. Chair, for questions.
So I just want to ask you one more question, Councillor Denis, before I bring it to round table. Initially, what you're looking for is basically a staff report explaining what we can do, and then obviously because some of this is out of our jurisdiction, we need to take that to the Canadian Shipping Act and all that stuff. So, but initially we're looking for a staff report. Is that fair to say?
Well, yes, I'd like to progress a little faster, but that's technically that's what I'm looking for. You have to apply to Transport Canada to get the application going, and I know it's an intensive application, and so it might take a while, and it takes a lot of resources, I think. So I think Jay has a comment. Okay, does that answer your question?
So I will go to a round table, but I will ask our CAO first because general shipping and water has come up in the past, and I do know it gets complicated quickly. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not much to add. I had my hand up to say I don't have much to add because actually Councillor Seneca covered the big notes. A, the water and the management of the water is not our jurisdiction. B, it's OPP enforced, and those regulations are enforced by the federal government. So he's already covered all of that. So a staff report, would just drill down into the detail and confirm what has already been said. And so I think the issue is one that, like anything, when you're making a traffic change or whatever, is there a warrant? Is it needed? And if council feels that it's needed and is requesting us to start the process, then all it would take is for us to start the process. So I don't know that we need to come back with a detail to highlight section whatever of whatever act. I think Councillor Senecal covered the big, the broad strokes on that. And the broad strokes is that, yeah, it's not that simple a matter to deal with. There are steps and procedures. That doesn't make it wrong. And obviously, green buoys, red buoys. There's a bunch of navigation issues that the federal government can impose with respect to no wake and limits and so on. But we need to make the request. And so, if that's what council wants us to look into, certainly all we need is the overall direction to push it a little further.
Thank you. So now I will go to a roundtable, and I'm going to start off with Councillor Duhaime. But first, Madam Mayor, could I ask you to adjust your Zoom because you're out of the picture for me.
Give me a second here.
Or just you're better now, but if you could just shift it a little bit, and while you're doing that, perhaps Councillor Duhaime.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do agree with Deneen. He pretty well summed it all up. My general concern is the safety with, as he had mentioned, there's 20 feet underneath that bridge. I'm there on a weekly basis with my boat because we go to the living little store and chip stand. And I agree, there is danger there. There's an accident waiting to happen. And the lodge owner, he obviously receives a lot of the waves action. So if we can slow the traffic for safety reasons to go underneath the bridge, I am deeply concerned with that, as well as it will rectify the wake that the boats make. So I'm going to ask, as Jay mentioned, I'll ask staff to please proceed with this and go on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Larrabee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, well, my question was, because since it's navigable waters, it's the authority of the federal government. So, yes, I'd like to definitely proceed with that. But then I would also like to have an OPP report on this, saying the demand. But then I did speak with some resident of Lavigne, and they are in support of this. They would like to see a no wake. So yes, I'd say let's move ahead with this, but let's involve the UPP with this also. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mallette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree also with the no wake zone in Lavigne, but I know we get a lot of complaints from the Sturgeon River also. And if you do to the Sturgeon River all the way, but I think if they want to do a report, do a study, I think you should include the river as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Oh no, sorry, Councillor Rivera.
I have no issues. The only thing is when you talk about a wake, when you go down the river on the Sturgeon River and you're slowed down, your wake is much greater than a wake of a boat that's going faster. And it's always puzzled me because I know that at the Sunbeam, where my grandmother owned that hotel, we always had problems with our docks, but it was not because of the boats going too slow or too fast. It was the wake, and the wake was caused by a boat going slower. And I don't know, that it's always an issue. But I agree with being the fact that it's between the bridge and all that, at the bridge area. I can see it being an issue. So I have no issue with that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I want to commend Councillor Denis for bringing this forward, because I do know that the safety issue of that bridge pertaining to recreational activities, sea-doos, boats, and so on, and the volume, and probably it increased also in the last 2 years due to the pandemic. And there's a lot of lodge owners also that do rent recreational watercraft. So there's increased traffic. No, I do support it, and I would concur that we start the process
Thank you. Councillor Lee Seneca.
Well, I do agree with it too, because the big difference, I guess, is because between, if I remember correctly, the bridge and the water is not as high as it is with the bridge that we have that go to the river. So I do agree with that. I think it's because fast or slow, there's a wave anytime, it doesn't matter. And just if we can do something to slow it down, well, I think it's a shot, and it might be a lot of work, but one step at a time.
Just
And I would support that. Thank you.
just a comment there, from what I just people that are boaters that are smarter than me, but there's no such thing as a no wake zone. There's a speed regulating that you can apply for and that kind of thing. And the other thing I've been told is that it's already potentially an enforcement issue. I'm not suggesting we're not going forward, but I'm just for your own personal information and perhaps the OPP's information is that you can't be more than 10 kilometers an hour on within 30 meters of a shoreline. And so by going under the bridge, you should be actually following proper speed. So in addition to the work that we're doing, we will communicate with the OPP.
Thank you. So I think we pretty much have consensus on that, unless Councillor Senecal, because you voted, do you have anything else to add?
Yes, I would just like to add that it's fine to involve the OPP at this point, but they have no real jurisdiction. It's a federal issue, and the only thing we're doing is going to help them enforce the issue of speed. And like I say, like Jay was saying, over 30 meters, I think there's regulation if you're inside of that, but if you're outside of that, there's no regulation and there's no opportunity for the OPP to do anything about it. So that's, but there's a wave issue and there's also the safety issue. All right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Rolly, you did have your hand up. Did you have a final comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes. So if I understood this right, from what Councillor Denis said, there's a pathway of 20 feet wide, and that's where everybody's going. So that is in between the 30 meter, because it's only 20 feet wide. So it's enforceable by the OPP as it stands now.
Clarification.
Go ahead, Councillor Seneca.
Yes, Councillor Rowley, it's just that the 20 feet is between the pillars of the bridge or not from shore. And they say 30 meters from the shoreline. So it doesn't apply, right? So you only have, I'm saying 20, it might be less, but between the pillars, that's the only way you can get across. All right, thank you.
Thank you. So again, I think we do have consensus on that, and it's certainly something that can go on an OP agenda as well. So I will move on to the final category in my section, which is COVID-19 update, and which member of staff would like to take this?
Oh, Stepan.
I can speak to it if you wish, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, thank you.
As far as community services facilities stand, we were able to reopen both arenas, the gym and the pool. As of yesterday, speaking to staff, our reopening has gone very smoothly. We're working with all user groups in the arena. We do have capacity limits in both facilities as well as in the pool and the gym. So we're respecting those guidelines. The outdoor rinks remain open as well. And even though it's an outdoor activity, we also have limits. We have signage posted there, and we have not heard of any issues with our outdoor rinks to date. So it's nice that we can begin assuming certain activities within our facilities. And we are closely monitoring, and we're verifying for everyone coming into the facilities 12 and over, ensuring that they are fully vaccinated, and working with our groups. And I mean, we're 2 days in, and so far, no issues.
Question?
Thank you. I'll
Question, please.
Go ahead, Councillor Larrabee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So now that the arenas are open, would it be safe to say that our outdoor rink facility would also be open for the kids to put their skates inside instead of doing it outside in the snow?
Unfortunately not. In consultation with the health unit counselor, they are indoor facilities. Anyone coming into our outdoor rink buildings have to be fully vaccinated, which would mean we would have to put screeners there at all times when the outdoor rinks are open. So unfortunately, due to guidelines and protocols, our outdoor rink buildings must remain closed and locked to the public. And that is for the foreseeable future.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do I need to do a roundtable, or does anybody else have any questions?
Well,
Go ahead, Councillor Senecal.
just one question, Monsieur Stéphane. So if the indoor rink are closed to the skater, doesn't mean that they're closed for a hockey team?
The arenas themselves?
Yeah.
No, they're open as usual. So all the user groups are utilizing the arenas right now. We do have screeners at the door verifying vaccine passports, and we do have capacity limits of 100 people maximum in the stands for fans to watch hockey games. So we're working with the West Nipissing Lynx as well to ensure that those protocols are followed as well.
So if I may, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So what you're saying is everything is okay, but just for the skating part, because he would have to hire somebody else or.
I think Councillor Larrabee was referring to our outdoor rinks in our buildings for the outdoor rinks. Because when in normal times we would have the outdoor rinks buildings open so that people wanting to use the facility would change their skates.
Okay.
But the health unit has advised us they are considered indoor space, and people must be vaccinated to come in to put their skates on or put their shoes back on after they're done. And if we can't, ensure that we have screeners there at all times, which I don't think is feasible for us to do, then unfortunately they have to put their skates on from their vehicles, or we also have benches there. It's not ideal, but it's the second winter that we have to operate that way.
Okay, I was thinking the way it was explaining was public skating, so thank you for the clarification. I agree with what you're saying.
Thank you, Councillor Senecal. So my screen is actually freezing up, so I can't really tell if somebody else wants to speak. So I'm just going to do a really, really quick roundtable just to see if anybody has any comments. Councillor Dehaene.
No, I'm good.
Councillor Larrabee.
Yeah,
Good.
I'm okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Councillor Millet.
I'm okay, thank you.
Councillor Revita.
I'm all right.
Okay.
You're good. Councillor Denise Senecal. Oh,
Good.
sorry, Madam Mayor.
No problem. Conseil Denise spoke before me, but I do have maybe a few questions. Thank you for the update. It's appreciated. Since the arena are reopening, I know that I've been probably a thorn asking every time, when are we going to be allowing public skating in our arenas? We have some seniors in West Nipissing. In the past, it was small groups, and I mean, they hope to be able to access public skating like yesterday. So do we have a timeline? Because I've been telling them that was subject to review early in New Year.
Correct. Madam Mayor, at the Sturgeon Falls Arena, we feel comfortable that we can now offer programming for skating like we have in the past. I believe it was 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. I think it was close to around the noon hour for an hour and a half. We would offer public skating. What I've asked staff is to look at implementing the same system that we use for the pool or the gym, where you basically have to call in and reserve your spot on the ice, that for whatever day you're looking for, you prepay You come into the pool side or the main entrance to the complex, your passports are verified, and then you're allowed on the ice on the arena side. So we think that we're there, and we're hoping to be able to make an announcement on dates, times, and process in the very, very near future.
Well, that's really good news. Thank you for that. But what's in the plan for the Werner Arena? Because after this meeting, the same question is going to be asked by some residents of the community that want to be able to access public skating at the Werner Arena.
So the Werner Arena is only open on evenings, Monday to Thursday, and only open, and the arena is not open on Friday, not open on Saturday, and open all day on Sunday. Again, the arena is not manned during the daytime. We would need to provide maintenance staff and screeners at that facility. We're not equipped to also, there's no cash register, no canteens. So it's a lot more problematic because that facility is not manned the way it is at the Sturgeon Falls complex, because we have permanent staff sitting there from 6:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. at night. So it's more problematic. So we are looking at, and for weekend ice, the Friday, Saturday, the reasons the arena is closed is because there's no demand for ice that warrants opening the arena on Friday evenings and on Saturdays. On Sundays, they're full days. The ice is booked from 9 a.m. on to 10 p.m. at night. So it's going to be difficult for us to include public skating. And now that minor hockey and figure skating have lost a month of activity, maybe a little over a month, they're now busy rescheduling games that they've missed. So there's potential that we will require ice time on Saturdays. We'll look at it, but to have a program in Werner during the daytime on a weekday is not conducive for us to move forward with.
Okay, but you will look into it to see if there could be something, if it's not daytime, evenings or whatever?
Yeah, we'll look at the logistics to see if we can pull that off. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And subsequent to that, Mr. Chair, what about the Pickleball Association? They were using the upstairs of the Werner Arena. Will they be able to restart their activities?
So I have discussed this. Unfortunately, at this time, they will not be able to resume. It's not because of provincial guidelines. It's because of other factors. We have a claim against us for a slip and fall that's occurred from the Pickleball Association. So there's certain things we need to address before we can safely allow this group to resume play. So there's logistics around that as well. They have been informed, and so we will move forward when it's safe to do so.
Okay, thank you. And my final one is the Werner Gym. I know that's a capital project, but it was a project that we thought would provide capability of opening the gym in Werner in early New Year. And there's a lot of interest and people want to subscribe and have access to the gym. So what's the update for the Werner Gym?
So the construction is still ongoing. We need to finalize that. And then once that's done, we need to be able to put a plan in place to ensure that that facility is safely used. We need to look at hours of operation. We need to look at selling, having people call in and book like they do for the Sturgeon Falls gym, to making sure that people are fully vaccinated. Again, we don't have full-time staff at that facility, so the logistics might be a bit more complicated to open that facility and ensure that we look at all risk management and COVID protocols and allowing people to safely use that facility. So there's more work to be done. I'm not going to provide a timeline, but obviously we need to make sure construction's done and then we put a safe process in place that people can safely use that facility. But it's going to happen at some point in the future. I'm not going to say near future because I don't think we're weeks away from reopening. We might be months away from opening that facility.
Okay, so the construction is still in progress.
Correct.
Do we have a reason why the construction is still in progress? That was started, I believe, a few months before year end. I thought it was, new flooring, new wall, make it conducive to a gym. But it's not like they're constructing a new building. They're renovating a space to accommodate.
But it is an old building. We did run into issues with leaky pipes and whatnot in the walls, and there's the scope of work did have to increase somewhat. So I can follow up with our facility manager to see where we're at with the construction. But you know, with COVID and whatnot, our staff are doing the best they can to work with the contractors to get the work done. But in any event, even if the construction work would have been done 2 weeks ago, we wouldn't have been in a position to open that facility as of yet.
Okay,
Madam
thank
Mayor?
you. Yes, it's Mr. the Chair. It's Councillor Chris that is chairing. this
Sorry,
committee.
Mr. Chair. It's 9:30. Your mic, please.
You're on mute, Chris?
Chris, you're on mute.
All right. Okay, sorry about that. Yes, I'm well aware of that, but I just wanted a little bit of leeway because only Councillor Denise Sanacala has not spoken. I wonder if he has any questions, and then we could call it to a vote.
I'm good, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. So I guess I'm going to ask the clerk to read the resolution to continue from 9:30.
Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Lees, Councillor Rowley. It is moved by Councillor Lee Senecal and seconded by Councillor Larrabee. At approximately 9:32 p.m., a motion was tabled to extend the meeting beyond regular curfew in order to proceed with the agenda.
All
Those
in
in favor?
favor?
Somebody call it to a vote?
Those in favor?
Done.
Defeated.
Is, I didn't understand your question, Councillor Chris. Is it in favor to extend or in favor to shut down?
Always in favor to extend.
The resolution was to carry, to go beyond the curfew. The clerk had read the resolution and Councillor Chris was asking who was in favor to go beyond the curfew. Like it's done.
Okay, my answer is no.
Defeated.
That's what we saw.
Thank you.
Motion is defeated. Onward and upward. Mover and a seconder to adjourn the meeting. Please.
All we would have needed is 15 minutes.
Councillor Leo.
What do you mean 15 minutes? There's about an hour and a half to go.
Okay, sorry, let's just listen to what the clerk is reading.
It is
Because
moved by
then it'll avoid questions. Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Millet and seconded by Councillor Fisher, be it resolved that bylaw number 2022-22, being a bylaw of the West Nipissing Municipality to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on the 1st of February 2022, shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
Any objections? Hearing none, carried.
It's moved by Councillor Millet and seconded by Councillor Fisher, be it resolved that the meeting of the council held on February the 1st, 2022 be adjourned.
Any objections? None, carried. Adoptee.